Here are 10 of Roger's worst relationships in American Dad that went completely wrong. Starting off with the episode American Stepdad, in this episode, Roger gives Stan the best American comeback by, well, you'll find out. Stan was already having a pretty crooked day. Then his wife runs in with bad news that his stepdad has passed away. They attend the funeral, and later find out that Stan's mom used up all the money on the funeral. He requests she stay at his place, which leads him to kick Roger out of his own space. Meanwhile, Steve and his friends run into a fallen plane and find the script to Fast and Furious 7. I don't know what universe this Fast and Furious is, but apparently Brian O'Connor tried to outrun a bullet that made a perfect left turn. Back at home, Stan calls Roger a nobody. I know I've been making it feel light, but this actually hurts Roger. Just the other time, Stan said,
"Family is your siblings, your kids, or most importantly, people you have physically been inside, either sexually or as a fetus."
For all the hurt Stan put him through, Roger replied with the biggest comeback of all times.
Me and Tom Yabo got married!
That's right, Stan. I'm your new stepdad.
And guess what? They got married over.
In addition to both of us loving tea, it turns out Betty and I are also both huge fans of laughing while drinking tea.
That so far is the pettiest reason someone ever got married. I know we're focusing on Roger's relationships, but why is Dom's tongue exploring Brian's chewing regions in the show?
What the?
Are you sure you read that right?
Over dinner, Stan struggles to accept Roger as his new stepfather. Surprisingly, Roger embraces the fatherly role, offering Stan solid advice and bonding with him while fixing up an old car together. As Betty and Roger prepare for a trip to Niagara Falls, Roger gifts Stan the car they restored, and for the first time in his life, Stan felt like he had a dad, and he also…
See ya, sport.
Bye, Dad! Have fun, Dad! See you when you get back, Dad!
Stan later finds evidence suggesting Roger intends to kill Betty at Niagara Falls. Rushing to stop them, Stan crashes the car thinking he could pull a Dominic Toretto-level jump, but he arrives just in time. At the edge of the falls, Betty reveals that she planned to kill Roger for his life insurance. After a dramatic struggle, Roger sacrifices himself to save Stan, but truthfully he's letting go because he and Betty's relationship will not patch up, but later turns up unharmed, leading a tour group. Betty collects the insurance and heads off to Paris, where she happily watches Fast and Furious 7 that exclusively includes the weird instrument clashing scenes. You'd think there's a limit to just how low Roger can stoop with his antics, but in the episode Jenny from Da Block, he goes even lower. 10 years ago, Snot developed a crush on Haley, which has persisted to the present. In the present, Steve is sharing his idea of tasting 31 ice cream flavors at Baskin-Robbins with his friends for their 6th annual best friend anniversary. While Jeff and Haley were just about to agree on making a baby, Snot calls on her through the window and professes his love for Haley, despite her being married to Jeff. Haley rejects him, leaving Snot heartbroken. To cheer him up, Steve and Roger devise a plan. Roger dresses as Steve's teenage cousin, Jenny from Da Block, and Snot falls in love with her at a video arcade. The next day at the schoolyard, Snot boasts to Steve and the gang that he and Jenny went to the beach and…
I finally did it, man! I'm not a virgin anymore!
Steve angrily confronts Roger, and during the argument, he finds Roger cleaning a stress ball, which Roger admits he plans to use while they rub Tetris parts together. At Wild West Land, an amusement park, Steve exposes Roger's deception to Snot by showing him the stress ball as proof. Heartbroken, Snot ends the relationship with Roger, who is also upset. Steve tries to reignite enthusiasm for his Baskin-Robbins plan, but Snot remains depressed like a soaked-up log of wood. Steve then helps orchestrate a reconciliation between Roger in his Jenny disguise and Snot. After Roger apologizes, Snot forgives him, but their reunion is short-lived when…
Until tonight, my love.
No!
Snot just lost the alien of his life. No, I meant the love of his life. Steve comforts Snot by pointing out that he got closer to having his V-card taken by someone who's not in the group. Moments later, Roger reappears in another disguise, revealing he faked his death and used his speed to set up a decoy before the bus hit Jenny. Meanwhile, Stan decided to start drinking martinis, but Francine insists he can't handle alcohol, After drinking a martini, Stan runs through the neighborhood in his underwear at night. He drinks another and repeatedly passes out without realizing it, leading him to believe Francine is a witch due to how quickly she seems to move between his blinks when he regains consciousness. My favorite part was when he jumped on a mailbox and the other boxes were like,
Maybe he thought it was a female box.
A female.
The episode, A Piñata Named Desire, is by far the weirdest episode for me. After Roger auditions for the lead role in a play, he gets home and he and Stan argue over who is the dominant figure in the house by,
I can do anything better than you.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Enough!
Thank you, Francine. We don't want this turning into a full-blown singing contest. Stan brags about his undercover CIA work, which Roger dismisses as fantasy. Meanwhile, Steve and his friends plan a slumber party, but after being teased at school, they decide to throw one final blowout party. However, the group struggles to agree on a pizza choice, and Steve's friends reveal they feel they're too old for sleepovers. Steve tries to keep the fun alive, but it's clear the group is drifting apart. When they receive an email from Ronnie, a long-lost friend who moved away, the boys are puzzled by the timing. Ronnie arrives, having also received a mysterious email about the group's breakup. In the end, the boys bid farewell to another piece of their childhood, with Steve questioning whether Ronnie was truly who he claimed to be, or just a stranger who overheard their argument. Roger tails Stan on his mission. He realizes it's true. Unfortunately, Stan blows his cover, and it's revealed that he only gets silent roles because of his very bad acting skills. I mean, if he were to act in order to save the planet, you might as well kiss it goodbye before he even starts. Desperate, Stan asks Roger for help. Roger, in one of his personas, offers Stan acting lessons. Roger's coaching pays off, but to his shock, Stan lands the lead role in the play that Roger desperately wanted. In a jealous rage, Roger sabotages the leading actress and her understudy to take their place, trying to outshine Stan on stage. The two engage in a fierce rivalry to prove who's the better actor. Here's a part I love in this scene.
'Cause I'll be breaking and making and taking your heart.
Then Roger replied with a Nicki Minaj put down like,
You've been shaking and baking and snaking from the start.
Roger thinks he'll win during the love scene, a moment where Stan typically hesitates. However, to Roger's surprise, Stan commits fully to the performance. They start savoring each other's roles. Then, before we know, Stan's engaging in some freaky fetish with Roger's foot. Stan throws Roger onto the table, and this happens.
I'm acting the crap out of you.
This leads to their arrest for an indecent act on stage. With their egos bruised, Roger and Stan make amends. Haley, observing the whole situation, remarks that all they really needed to do was just acquaint certain body parts like a Tetris game, and everything would work itself out. Things get heated in love, the American Dad style. And at this point, there's no one in the Smith family that hasn't had a piece of Roger's, I don't even know what the freaky alien has got down there.
You worthless piece of
Excuse me?
Excuse you?
Roger was not happy that Haley savored the last piece of his potato bread. Stan and Francine go to check out a new Hummy COK Jeep, and Francine made a joke about adding another C before the kick to make it.
Then it would guzzle COCK.
And for some reason, that joke flies right over Stan's head. Roger overhears her singing in the shower. Impressed, he invites her to perform at his bar, where her singing quickly becomes popular. Meanwhile, Stan is trying to sell his SUV in exchange for a new car. Frustrated by a car dealer's offer of only $10,000, Stan takes matters into his own hands. He attempts to sell the car himself, but repeatedly fails, just like his fight with the floater.
What are you?
How can you lose to a floater? In a last-ditch effort, he stages an over-the-top show featuring a bathing beauty and a lion to draw attention to the car. Things quickly spiral out of control when the lion nearly attacks the girl. Both the girl and the lion end up in Stan's SUV, which then rolls into a power pole, bursts into flames, and as chaos erupts, Stan quietly sneaks back into the house, avoiding the aftermath of his disastrous stunt. As Haley's performances gain traction, Roger starts developing romantic feelings for Haley. Despite his efforts to shake off these emotions, he becomes increasingly obsessed, like that one white guy from the Netflix TV show You. First, he fired her from singing, and when she asked for an explanation,
What did I do?
I said beat it.
You owe me an explanation.
I said beat it.
You're such a jerk, Roger. Ugh!
Roger tells her how he feels, and she turns him down. In a drastic move,
Roger, what do you— No!
Steve, I freaked out.
thinking this would rid him of his feelings. However, even that doesn't work. Desperate, he kidnaps Haley and takes her to the Lanston Ice Factory, planning something far darker, removing her skin. Before he can go through with his twisted plan, Jeff suddenly appears. Haley seizes the moment to explain to Roger that her love for Jeff is mutual and unbreakable, something she doesn't share with Roger. Disappointed but not deterred, Roger shifts his focus, deciding that skinning Jeff might be a better option. However, that didn't work either.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm over you anyway. Steve was right. It was just a crush. Hey, Jeff, good news. You're getting your skin back. Gross.
In the episode Lost in Space, Roger's past comes back to haunt him, but Jeff has to deal with it instead. After being tricked by Roger and taken aboard a ship meant to remove Roger, Jeff ends up working as a slave at a shawarma stand in a massive space mall. His coworker, Sinbad, helps put him through, and they spring into action when the ruthless Emperor Zing comes by. Despite Jeff's plea to go home and yapping about missing Haley, he's zapped into submission. Later, they head out for drinks, and Jeff is served by a flirtatious, shape-shifting bartender who wants to get off with him when she gets off work, and then she does this.
Get off with me.
It's clear that Jeff's only way to escape this fate is to prove his genuine love for Haley. However, the test for freedom involves a literal high-stakes gamble.
When you fail the Emperor's test, they do this. They make you smooth.
And apparently, a lot of people have been smoothened up like Megan the Stag's cheeks.
I am. Well, okay then. Let's wake up the Majestic.
As Jeff undergoes the test, he realizes that his past treatment of Haley wasn't always perfect. When Emperor Zing declares Jeff has failed, Jeff argues that he can truly love Haley the right way. However, the decision stands. He's lost. Dejected, Jeff returns to the slave camp and contemplates indulging in one final night of freedom before losing his privates. But in a moment of clarity, he refuses to cheat on Haley, reaffirming his love for her. Determined to prove his worth, Jeff decides to confront the Majestic, who had only shown the negative moments of his relationship. Jeff argues that the test was unfair, as it ignored the good times. The Majestic admits that his instructions were to focus solely on the bad memories and reveals that the Emperor also had a lost love. Inspired, Jeff and Sinbad start a rebellion among the slaves. As Jeff faces losing his privates, they expose the Emperor's betrayal to the people. With Sinbad's help, Jeff reaches an escape pod. In a shocking twist, the Majestic reveals that the Emperor's heartbreak was caused by Roger cheating on him. The rest of the Emperor's citizens rise in revolt, leaving him with only his guards. Sacrificing himself, Sinbad holds off the guards to give Jeff a chance to escape.
When you get to Earth, do me this one last solid.
Anything, Sinbad?
Clear my internet browser history.
That's a message I have to tell my best friend, and there's something he's got to clear. Jeff's journey isn't over, though. He must search countless worlds to find the right Earth. In the end, Sinbad reappears as a ghost, and they're off on a find my wife and get some bee adventure. You'd think Roger would never get attached to anyone. In this episode, Roger and Me, the impossible happened. Stan heads to Atlantic City for a bachelor party hosted by an old college friend. Francine is scared about the horrible, wonderful things ladies will do to her husband at the party. Roger said he'd persuade Stan to tag along so he could keep an eye on Stan. That took a drastic turn.
Look at your heart. You can't do this. It's not right. It's a wrong situation.
Meanwhile, Steve, while shopping for a new pair of Speedos, meets a girl named Trudy, whom he takes a liking to. At the same time, Haley encounters a guy named Miles who attends the same college as her. The siblings realize their crushes, Trudy and Miles, are already dating each other. And in a twisted plot, they scheme to break them up.
Come on, Roger. He never let you go.
Oh, I can be very persuasive.
Sounds like me and my best friend about to do something we shouldn't. Once they arrive, Stan learns that his friend didn't actually want him there. And because they brought a little toy and the father-in-law is a reverend, they get kicked out, leaving Stan and Roger to fend for themselves when they sneak into a hotel's hot tub. After a few too many drinks, Stan agrees to a probing ritual from Roger's planet, which is performed between best friends to share memories. After sobering up, Stan feels embarrassed by the event and refuses to talk about it or admit it to Francine, and this really bums Roger out. Steve and Haley plant an earring in Miles' pocket to make Trudy suspicious and use voice recordings to make Miles think Trudy is cheating with a Brazilian guy named Jim. In their final move, they set up a fake meeting where both think they are secretly meeting their lovers. But the plan backfires when Miles burns his face on a barbecue grill, and Trudy falls into a creek, getting attacked by an alligator. Horrified, Haley and Steve agree never to speak of their actions again. Stan and Roger get into an argument about the probing incident. This was Roger's first ritual, and it's a big deal, and I can't believe he's not taking that $10K. In the middle of their bickering, Stan accidentally runs over Francine. Her only hope of survival is an expensive $178,000 surgery. Knowing Roger has access to all his memories, Stan and Roger team up to compete on the game show Best Buddies, where they could win $200,000. However, they fail because Stan knows nothing about Roger, even down to the simplest best bud question.
Well, I guess it's time to call the kids and let them know we've lost Mommy forever.
Don't mind me, woman in the room.
Stan, wait. What if I performed the surgery?
What are you talking about? It's a highly specialized operation. You don't know how to do that.
True, but I'm a fast learner.
To fix things, Roger decides to take matters into his own hands, literally. He probes the doctor performing the surgery to learn how to do the operation himself. Francine didn't turn out perfect, but a win is a win. As the master of fake deaths, in the episode 11, Max's Jets, Roger swindles a swindler with yet another great scheme. It's a family dinner out, Stan tries to save money, and the family reluctantly agrees to skip tipping their waitress, Gina. In an attempt to liven things up, Roger shares the news that his alter ego, Max Jets, is being released from prison after serving 6 years. Roger sneaks into the prison to assume the Max Jets persona just in time for his release. While Klaus is irritated by Max's return, the rest of the family loves it because Max spoils them with money and lavish gifts. He then does this.
Beep, 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 beep.
Stan?
Aren't you tired of washing your face after every time you blow your nose? Let him vote.
Oh, Max!
And I'm gonna leave without a comment. He takes them to dinner, and this time, Max showers Gina with cash and informs the family that he plans to give them all his wealth. The family begins dreaming about their upcoming trip to Spain, but their plans hit a snag when Max, under Gina's influence, asks for the money back, saying Gina told him he was being reckless with his spending.
My new sweetheart!
There goes our free ticket. As they listen to the story of how Max and Gina met, the family quickly suspects that Gina is a gold digger aiming to steal their inheritance. While most of the family tries to flatter Max to regain his favor, Stan is blunt and tells Max the truth. However, Max is in denial and reveals that he even built Gina a sound studio in the basement. At the Langley Beach Club, Max tries to prove Gina's worth to the family, but he is blind to her true nature. Francine pulls her and warns her, but Steve, on the other hand, who's grown a boner, says,
Kiss her, Mommy, kiss her.
While Max remains smitten, Gina openly flirts with other men, even going topless on the beach. When Max confronts her,
You were right! I needed to lock this down!
We're getting married!
and that did not go as planned at all. The family hatches a plan to stop the wedding. As the wedding day approaches, the family bickers over how much money each will get if Max dies. They all go off in separate attempts to sabotage Max, but their clumsy efforts only hinder one another. By the time they recover, the wedding has already taken place. Defeated, the family sulks, but Gina surprises them by revealing that Max signed a prenuptial agreement, denying her access to his fortune. Just as things seem to be settling, Max collapses face first into his wedding cake and dies. At the will reading, however, the family learns that Max left everything to his son, Jerry Jetts, another one of Roger's personas, who Gina had been cheating with. Gina poisoned Max, but after Max made peace with Jerry, they inherited all the wealth. The episode is called The Worst Stan, but it's really about Roger's relationship with a pair of shorts, Stan. Realizing that he may never fulfill his dream of being a best man, hatches a plan involving Principal Lewis. He takes Lewis to Buffalo Crazy Wings and tricks him into choking on a chicken bone, claiming the wings are boneless.
You almost died, bro! Alone!
Oh, God!
Alone, bro!
I don't want to die alone, bro.
No one does, bro! You need to settle down and get married!
You're scaring me, bro.
Get married, bro!
Okay, damn it, all right.
Yes!
If I ever need to convince my best friend to get married, I think I just found the best way, the Stan way. Lewis confesses his attraction to Superintendent Ellen Riggs. With this in mind, Stan convinces Ellen to agree to marry Lewis and starts planning the wedding. While preparing for the bachelor party, Stan stumbles upon old photos that reveal Lewis had a close relationship with a man named Tracy Bryant during his time in prison. Meanwhile, Roger acquires a magical pair of shorts from a gypsy woman that makes his legs long and muscular. He and Steve head to Miami to go clubbing, where Roger catches the eye of Ricky Martin. When Ricky asks Roger to take off the shorts, Roger refuses, embarrassed by his real legs. After some advice from Steve, Roger confesses the truth to Ricky. To Roger's surprise, Ricky reveals he, too, is hiding a secret, a magical shirt that conceals a massive beer gut. Thrilled, Roger steals the shirt to complete his look. Curious, Stan tracks down Tracy and invites him to the wedding, only to learn that Tracy was Lewis's prison wife, and by prison rules, they are still married. Determined to fix the situation, Stan puts a few bullets through Tracy, feeds him to a croak, killed the croak, and skinned it for shoes and bags. But upon returning, he finds Tracy back with Lewis.
Hello, white cheese.
When Stan reminds Lewis about his upcoming wedding to Ellen, Lewis admits he still has feelings for Tracy. In an attempt to resolve things the prison way, Stan beats up Lewis and declares Tracy his own prison wife, allowing the wedding to proceed. As the wedding approaches, Stan meets Ellen, Lewis, and the flower girl, Ashley, for dinner at Wong's Golden Walk to gather material for his best man, Toast. While Lewis and Ashley step away, Ellen reveals that her true motive for marrying Lewis is to have a baby to boost her chances of becoming city comptroller. She confidently shares her plan with Stan, knowing he won't spill the secret because he, too, is using Lewis to fulfill his own desires. On the day of the wedding, Stan grapples with his emotions until Lewis's stepfather, Mr. Druffle, advises him to follow his heart. Stan stops the ceremony and persuades Lewis that he'd be happier staying single. Furious, Ellen knocks Stan out, demanding how she'll achieve her baby and promotion now. Who knew Roger was actually an important part of the Smith household? The episode Dr. Klaustus explains how. Dr. Penguin, another Roger persona that's a therapist, tells Steve to hide his insecurities. Steve takes his girlfriend to Greg and Terry's house and pretends they're his parents. Stan secretly hates Francine's cooking, but doesn't admit it. And Jeff struggles to be intimate with Haley without thinking of Francine. Despite these secrets, Roger's advice keeps things calm, but Klaus suspects it's all wrong. Seeing the damage Roger's therapy is causing, Klaus takes drastic action. He arranges for Roger's other persona, Sergeant Pepper, to be deployed to Iraq, hoping this will help the family face their issues without Roger's misguided influence.
Bye-bye, Dr. Penguin. Dr. Klaus is in the house.
However, when Klaus tries to step in and take over Roger's therapy duties, no one is willing to listen to him. In a final effort, Klaus exposes everyone's secrets, hoping it will force them to confront the problems.
Four-eyed bastard! That malnourished pasty geek! I knew I should have aborted him!
Goodness.
Oops, I said the whole thing. No! Why, Haley, why?
Unfortunately, that only leads to more hostility, and the family becomes even more divided. Klaus is frustrated by the situation and becomes Stan's target practice for dart throwing, but vows to bring Roger back. Meanwhile, in Iraq, Roger is stuck cleaning toilets and is left traumatized after a particularly disgusting incident in an outhouse. Klaus arranges for Roger's return, but Roger feels too broken to come back. Unwilling to give up, Klaus sneaks into Roger's room, removes the Sergeant Pepper uniform, and redresses him as Dr. Penguin. When he wakes up,
What am I doing here?
and he heads back home with Klaus, Roger realizes the family's issues have gotten worse, and his previous advice to lie to each other is no longer working. At his wit's end, Roger sits down with a copy of US Weekly. Surprisingly, Klaus's advice begins to make sense to him, but only if he holds the magazine up to avoid seeing Klaus as a fish. Roger then switches back to his Sergeant Pepper persona and starts giving the family genuinely good advice, all while crediting Klaus. The family finally recognizes Klaus not just as a talking fish, but as a person trapped in a fish's body. To show their appreciation, they send Klaus to a whorehouse, but he quickly realizes that being in a fish body still limits his experience, leaving him disappointed. I've always wondered how Roger keeps tabs on all his personas, but in the episode, the one that got away, one persona goes rogue.
Roger, we have to talk. This family has a problem.
Roger returns home to find the Smith family upset with him for constantly taking things and disappearing as one of his many alter egos. They assume his behavior stems from an inferiority complex.
Eat my dust!
He's getting away!
Stop him!
Soon after, Roger realizes that his credit card has been maxed out and believes he's the victim of identity theft. Determined to catch the culprit, Roger discovers that the thief is Sidney Huffman, a seemingly harmless Bible maker. Roger decides to get revenge and plans to burn down Sidney's apartment. However, just as he's about to set the place on fire, Roger finds a photo and is shocked to discover
I'm the sap. I'm Sidney. One of my personas has taken on a life of its own.
In a flashback, we learn that Sidney was living a peaceful life until Roger, in one of his reckless moves, began misprinting Bibles, vandalizing Sidney's garden, and spreading rumors to Sidney's girlfriend, Judy, about him having diseases. Desperate to rid himself of Roger's chaos, Sidney put a hit on him. Back in the present, Roger is nearly killed by the hitman Sidney hired. To avoid being killed, Klaus suggests that Roger pretend to be Sidney and call off the hit. However, the hitman needs a secret password before canceling the job. Roger, unsure of what it could be, visits Judy to ask about Sidney's favorite words. She's as dumb as a pigeon because,
And I'm Sidney.
Yeah, well, Sidney would never talk to me like that. Ah! Sidney, is that you? But I don't understand. Sidney, where'd you go?
Unfortunately, before Roger can get the answer, the hitman arrives at Judy's location and threatens her life. Roger, hiding in a changing room, contemplates leaving her behind. At that moment, Sidney appears in the mirror and criticizes Roger's cowardice. Roger begs Sidney to reveal the password, but Sidney refuses, insisting that Roger deserves to face the consequences for his actions. Roger, realizing that he and Sidney are the same person, explains to Sidney that they share the same pair of black gloves, which triggers Sidney's memory of when he first met Judy. Roger recalls everything. He had wanted the gloves so badly that he created the Sidney persona to get closer to Judy. After Roger's deceit ruined Judy's career, he developed a split personality, unaware of being Sidney until now. Sidney finally gives Roger the password, Password 1, and Roger symbolically kills Sidney by stabbing his reflection in the mirror. He takes Judy out for dinner and tells her he's a drunk, and also says,
And I have no genitals.
That's okay. I have both.